The moment I stepped out of my truck that evening, gravel crunching under my boots, I knew something had gone wrong, though at first I couldn't name it. The air felt heavier, the kind of heavy that presses down on your chest and makes you notice every small sound, the cry of a crow, the wind dragging across Clearwater Lake. And when I turned my head toward the shore where my dock had always waited like a loyal friend, the ground seemed to tilt under me, because what should have been a familiar stretch of weathered planks reaching into calm water was instead a ruin of jagged beams jutting like broken bones, splinters scattered across the mud, the shoreline littered with planks as though some cruel storm had torn through. But the sky was blue, the lake still, and then I smelled it. That sharp, oily bite of diesel, and my eyes followed it to an excavator crouched on the bank like a metal beast feeding on what was mine. And behind its glass sat Miriam Lowe, president of the Clearwater Shores HOA, oversized sunglasses reflecting the water, posture stiff with self-importance. And when she leaned slightly forward, lips curling into a half-smile that wasn't a smile at all but a verdict, she announced with the casual cruelty of a queen condemning a peasant, "Your dock was a violation. We did you a favor by removing it." And I swear the word favor hit me harder than any fist could have, because that dock wasn't just wood and nails. It was the spine of my family's history, the place where my boy Daniel tied his first fishing knot with tongue poking out in concentration, where my wife Claire, God rest her soul, used to sit with her wine glass glowing orange in the sunset, her hand folded over mine, where neighbors had gathered on long evenings for barbecues while kids leapt shrieking into the lake. And in a single afternoon, Miriam had erased it, reducing decades of memories to rubble, and as I clenched my fists so tight I thought my nails would cut my palms, I wanted to haul her down from that steel throne and make her look me in the eye and explain what gave her the right to bulldoze the heart of my life. But she didn't even climb down, just sat there like a monarch on high, surveying conquered land. And in her mind, I was nothing more than a stubborn relic clinging to something that didn't fit her rule book. That night, I spread a shoebox of photographs across my kitchen table, each one a blade twisting in me. Daniel small and earnest, with fishing line tangled around his fingers, Claire's smile glowing against the horizon, neighbors laughing, kids mid-leap with water spraying, and behind them all the dock, steady as a heartbeat, the anchor of every memory, and as I stared, grief boiled into something sharper, the kind of resolve that builds in silence. At first I thought about rebuilding, hammering fresh boards into place, refusing to let Miriam's machine have the last word, but before I could even gather tools, the letters began. Cold print, stamped with the HOA seal, fines of $500 a day until I restored my shoreline to community standards, followed by threats of court, followed by one final humiliation at the neighborhood meeting where Miriam, in her pale blazer and microphone she didn't need, said with her chin high, "This community cannot be held back by one old man clinging to the past." And the laughter that followed was worse than any fine because it came from the very mouths of neighbors who had once eaten burgers off paper plates on my dock, now clapping like she'd told a joke worth repeating. And I sat there, jaw locked, unable to speak, knowing then that Miriam wasn't just trying to erase my dock, she was trying to erase me. But what she didn't know, what even most of my neighbors had forgotten, was that my family still held the deed to the old dam at the north end of the lake, a structure tucked back in the woods, moss climbing its stones, built by my grandfather back when the lake was just a reservoir project. And though people assumed the town had taken it, legally it was still Harris land, Harris steel, Harris stone, and those iron gates didn't answer to Miriam, they answered to me. Sam, my quiet neighbor 2 houses down, reminded me one morning, his voice low but steady. "You know those houses they built too close to the shore? They're in the flood zone. Everyone knew it, but money talks. That dam, it's still yours." And in that moment, something lit inside me, a current of power flowing back where it had been drained, because Miriam thought she could humiliate me with bylaws and applause, but she had forgotten that water listens only to gravity, not to rules typed in 12-point font. So, for a week, I vanished into the woods each dawn with my grandfather's toolbox, oiling gears, tightening bolts, coaxing life back into iron that hadn't moved in years, my back screaming, my hands raw, but each day the gates loosened under my persistence, and with every lever that groaned awake, I felt stronger, more dangerous, more certain of what needed to come. Meanwhile, Miriam staged her grandest celebration yet, white tents gleaming on the shore, lanterns mirrored in the lake, champagne flutes clinking as she announced to cheers, "Our homes are worth millions. This community has never been stronger." And the crowd roared, blind to the fact that every million-dollar dream stood only because my grandfather's dam kept the water in check. And that night, as the party faded and silence folded over Clearwater Shores, I stood at the dam under moonlight, steel levers cold beneath my palms, whispering, "This is for Claire, for Daniel, for everyone you crushed, Miriam." Before pulling, and at first there was only the deep groan of old stone remembering itself. Then the grind of gears, then the roar, the lake trembling, then rising, inch by inch, turning calm water into something wild. And by 2 a.m., storm drains geysered into manicured lawns, basements filled like drowning lungs, alarms wailed. Neighbors stumbled out of houses, clutching phones. Luxury cars sank with headlights flickering beneath the surface, flower pots and patio furniture and children's bikes swirling together in a soup of wealth and panic. And there, spotlighted by her own security lights, stood Miriam. No sunglasses now, no smug half-smile, just a shrieking woman watching her fortress drown, barking orders at the flood as if the water would obey. But the flood obeyed no one, swallowing her driveway, bending her garage doors, dragging her shining SUV under until only bubbles surfaced, and by sunrise, Clearwater Shores was unrecognizable, a war zone of mud, wreckage, and disbelief. Helicopters chopping the air while reporters called it an unexpected release. Though it was nothing unexpected, it was inevitable. You cannot build arrogance on shallow ground without nature one day remembering itself. And though millions in damage were tallied, though homes were declared unlivable, the deed still bore my name, the law still recognized the Harris family's authority, and Miriam's fines, threats, smug proclamations dissolved as easily as drywall in her flooded living room. A week later, while her mansion sat empty and silent, we began again, not with glass balconies or sprawling decks, but with a dock, simple as the first one, built by me, Sam, Sarah from across the cul-de-sac, and her kids who ran back and forth with nails clutched in their fists, laughter ringing out where humiliation had once echoed, and when the last board was hammered in and the sun slipped low, we stood on that rough platform watching the lake ripple gold. No champagne, no applause for property values, just the quiet of people reclaiming what mattered. The right to live without fear of someone else's arrogance, dictating every choice. And yet, as I stand there now, I wonder, was it justice? Or was it vengeance dressed as consequence? Was I right to open those gates, to remind them that legacies cannot be bulldozed for the sake of a rule book? Or did I go too far, becoming destruction myself? I leave the question with you. Because if you had stood where I stood, with your memories splintered at your feet and the lever of a dam in your hands, watching the water strain against its chains, what would you have done?